rising right
Yeah,
now.
I really think the bite-sized game market is it, and RPGs just don't. On consoles, at least, they don't fit that mold.
I think there's so many things they could do. I've had this concept in my head for something that could work, and I think it would really create. It would light a spark under everyone's ass to get it would be a new genre. Think about something like Fire Emblem that came out on the Wii, a 3D turn-based strategy RPG. I take the Fire Emblem and put like a Final Fantasy Tactics, much more in depth with the numbers, much more individual classes and characters, and just the little stuff like. If a lot of it is visual flair, but it would make things, it would have that mass appeal, and you wouldn't need to. I think one of the things holding us back is these really stupid questions that gamers would scream. That has nothing to do with it. Like is there enough violence? We should probably have more violence. Is there enough sex in here? We should probably add more sex. Those are such juvenile things to think that that's what we're worried about when we pick up our games. Like maybe the market as a whole is worried about those things, but the people like us that are really paying their paychecks are going to be the people that are worried about. Did you have a morality system in the game? Were the armor changes cosmetic? Did you have did you have a organizable inventory button, or was it just inventory all over the fucking place?
Or like our conversation earlier, trying to get me to play the Old Republic. Is there a class that I can play that fits my playstyle? Is there something that I can do to make this enjoyable for me?
And I think what sucks is everyone's trying to get away from World of Warcraft now because everyone else that's making MMO, or hell, even Blizzard, everyone wants to forget about World of Warcraft so badly. Yeah. That's what you see when you play an MMO now, is that someone brings up World of Warcraft. I mean, we're playing Star Wars right now, and everyone is like, if you bring up World of Warcraft, it's like, hey guys, we're playing fucking Star Wars. I don't want to talk about World of Warcraft. Yeah. Everyone wants to forget about World of Warcraft because we're scared that World of Warcraft is as good as it's ever going to get. We are terrified, and we want to forget because we want good MMOs to stop failing, to give them a chance to grow. Because at the end of the day, it's not going to be perfect. And on the really bad end of the spectrum, you've got something like Final Fantasy XIV, and on the good end of the spectrum, you've got something like Age of Conan, which by all rights should have done really, really well. That game was incredible. I think I'm the only one here that played it. But, I mean, it was just fucking... I mean, it was... That and Warhammer are the best MMOs I've played outside of Final Fantasy XI and World of Warcraft. There's no reason they shouldn't have succeeded, except for Warhammer was a bit too close to the WoW formula, and Conan had shitty endgame. And you had these people that were, hardcore World of Warcraft players that just fucking booked it to the end of the game.
I think you nailed the Age of Conan one, though. The end game thing is huge for a lot of like the meta MMO gamers.
They had nothing at the end of the game to do, and so they canceled their subscriptions because the content wasn't coming out fast enough. But that's their fault. That is not Atari's fault for not doing that, with that game. How are they supposed to cater to that 10%, 15% that rush to the end of the game and leave the other 85%, without bug fixes and without, class changes and without, mid-game content and stuff like that? It just sucks that that's the state of things because someone has to have this enormous amount of capital to be able to invest equally across, all of the important things that would keep an MMO going. And I mean, thank God that we've got EA with an MMO because God knows they can fucking fork the money into it. And Square's given it the good old college try with Final Fantasy XIV, but I just don't think that's going to pan out for...
I think 14, I think, is a lost cause, but they're still actually chugging along with 11 remarkably well for a game that is as old as it is.
Yeah.
I think 14 is an interesting case just because of bringing up the Final Fantasy 11 was because Square themselves had a fully, a popular and for what it was, a well done MMO. I mean, it was super popular. Was it up to the WoW level? No, but they had experience
here. And that gets back to the weird
Japan,
Japanese.
Yeah. But
11 outsold WoW in Japan for a couple of years.
Yeah. But you also get into the whole cultural difference we were talking about earlier. Yeah. But I mean, it was still a popular MMO here, though. Right. It was still on the top, 3 MMOs for a long time. But they had this experience with this MMO, though, and then they come up with 14, which is like, you guys just did a successful one, so and so years ago, and now you got this. Like, I don't understand what goes through the mind.
All that could have been taken care of with a very simple poll too. And feel free to disagree with me, but really, all they had to do was say, would you prefer a game that was more or less like along the lines of a direct Final Fantasy XI sequel? And I guarantee you, people would, if they said, if we had to make another Final Fantasy MMO, do Do you want us to go closer or farther away from the Final Fantasy XI formula? 95% of responses would have been stay as close to possible. Because all that people wanted from Final Fantasy XI was a game that people would still want to play. That's all any Final Fantasy XI player wanted, is more people to play with, new players to show stuff to, and new things to do. And all they had to do was update the graphics, add a bunch of new content, some new classes, tweak the mechanics around a little bit. There's no problem with that. But we just wanted more Final Fantasy XI. And there was no reason for them to change it on the scale that they did and then release it in that broken-ass state. I understand that there was probably some pressure. But
there was a lot of pressure. I'll actually agree with you that a lot of people would say yes. The second I heard that they were doing another Final Fantasy MMO, the two games that came to mind that I wanted to see them use, I wanted to see them use Final Fantasy Tactics, and I wanted to see them use Final Fantasy IX. Tactics for the class system. Tactics had the best class customization system. I can do whatever I want within these classes.
Right.
There's 20 some odd classes in the game. I can do whatever the hell I want. Main class Samurai. Samurai's base stats are based off of magic attack for its release spells. I can either add, a warrior class to augment his physical strength, or I can add a magic class to augment his draw out. And there's no downside. That was the only thing that really got to me in 11, which bothered me. That as a Dark Knight, I had ridiculous physical power and utility spells. The spells that I had that I actually used were amazing. Drain, Stun, Ash Spear, those sorts of spells were, especially Stun, was great in a pinch. And the only downside is it didn't have the sub-job system. If I took Black Mage, it doesn't augment my magic enough for the loss of switching out for one of the melee increasing jobs. I would have loved to have seen them use Tactics for that base to where everything you do makes you better versus...
Yeah.
And then I wanted to see 9 because 9 had a great equipment learning system.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I would agree with that, yeah.
And imagine that in an MMO.
Yeah.
That would help have a turnaround for item sales. Your auction house is always going to be supplied because once you learn an ability, it's worth keeping for whatever stats it may have.
Right.
Or there may be something else better, but you don't want to just go ahead and upgrade to the better because you haven't finished learning this one yet. That would have been a great style.
Yeah.
But I would have liked to have seen just a high-res version of 11, but the only reason why I would have liked to have seen that is if they would have allowed you to transfer
Your
11 to 14.
Yeah.
That would have been the only way I would have done it because by the time that 14 came out, I was already at the level cap. I had a character that I had so much invested in. I didn't want to start from scratch in the same game.
I wouldn't have minded just a small thing like a last name or just some significance. Have it set 100 years in the future, 50 years in the future.
Like your original character's descendant.
Yeah, or something like that. Brother, anything. Any excuse. And just something small like you get extra items in your house, or you get like a an extra ring or just something to say. I mean, they sort of did that with like the names or whatever. But I agree with you. It does suck to get rid of all that. But at the end of the day, I guess that's something that I'm trying to accept for MMOs is that, and maybe it's because I've played so many now, I've had to give up that character so many times, is that it's gonna end no matter what. And
they're either going to shut the server down or...
Yeah, exactly. Your character will not be there forever no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So you may as well just take what you can and run with it.
That's the key thing there. As long as you're enjoying it, it's entertainment. So as long as you're entertained, keep going. And once that's done, why keep doing it?
I think I think World of Warcraft did so many good things and so many bad things. Well, it did one good thing for MMOs and a lot of bad things for MMOs. It made MMOs too accessible, in my opinion.
It mainstreamed them, which is good, but it's also considered a bad thing too.
Yeah.
I think
because you've got all these people that don't have respect for one another.
Yeah, well, you got the Final Fantasy VII complex.
Yeah.
7 brought in. I remember when 7 came out. I was one of the only people who played Final Fantasy 3, or 6 in the U.S. for people who were. I was one of the few people in my class that had played it. And I remember going to school one day after the game had come out, and all of the jock guys, the guys who did not like games, they started coming up to me and was like, "Hey, I'm playing Final Fantasy VII, and I know you're playing it because I mean it's your type of game, but this game's just so awesome. But I'm stuck. How can I?" It's like, okay, it's kind of cool that it's bringing a couple of cultures together as far as gamers, because up to that point, all they played were certain types of games. They didn't play the same type of games that I play.
Snowboarding or whatever, yeah.
Blitz, things like that. And so now there's cross gamer dialogue, but then it brought in it's like all these people like, oh yeah, I'm a gamer. It's like, no, you're not a gamer. You're a tool.
Not just that, they became statistically significant because of that, and suddenly their opinions mattered just as much as ours, and that's how these RPGs started getting diluted. Is because people like that were playing the games too.
It's the case with everything. I mean, when you mainstream something, the broader the audience is, the more watered down it becomes, because you have something that
apply
during
it
the
to everyone.
Saturn days and even up to the 64 and PlayStation days, up until maybe halfway through the PlayStation's lifestyle, get my head the word life cycle. Yeah, it was catered to very specific people because they knew exactly who were buying it. But all of a sudden, when Final Fantasy VII became big, because I think the time of the RPG was definitely during that time. That's when they were the biggest.
Yeah, that was the peak of the.
That came out and then mainstreamed it, and then that's when people like the Wii's a notorious example. It's I have there's some great games in the Wii. I will be the first to admit that, but it mainstreamed it so much to the point okay. Yeah, we don't really care what you guys think. I mean, these are the people who are giving us the most money because they outnumber you 3-1.
With the Xenosaga, all that jazz. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just what it is, and it's at its core, it comes right back down to it always comes back to the money. No matter what you do, it's always the money. That's where the money lies. So,
I just think there's just so many bad I think MMOs are the future of gaming, no matter what you do. And
I think just multiplayer gaming in general, they're trying to broaden everything out
to
be more.
Does it have to be
social.
MMO or could it? Like Borderlands.
I think that a persistent. All right, we go back to growth. RPGs are taking over everything in video games, and what we're talking about RPGs
are the backbone of the video games.
RPGs are growth. People want growth. People want to know that the time that they've invested in something is time that they're going to get a return on. That when you invest something like this is why I don't like games like League of Legends and Heroes of New Earth, because you unlock some new people, but besides your experience playing that game,
I'm a big story gamer.
You get agree with me on that. Yeah, but you get nothing from it. You don't get your character doesn't get
other
any
than rage in League of Legends.
Right, but I mean you don't get any. You get small stuff like with Halo. Okay, you're level 50 such and such, and now you can have pink armor with this kind of visor and this kind of blah blah. But you can't do anything new.
It's just cosmetic. There's
exactly,
there's no gameplay changing feature for getting to a certain achievement.
You haven't grown with your character. You haven't really gotten anything back from that. And I think that when I say MMOs, I'm extending that to things like Farmville and Mafia Wars and stuff like that, because I think what's going to happen is people want a game they can take with them wherever they go, and they're not having to give up their progress in something. Because it's a really efficient form of entertainment. Because right now, if I'm at home and I'm playing Star Wars, and I've got my DS with me and I'm playing, Golden Sun, that's two different games. And really, I would rather be playing Star Wars. So it's a much more efficient form of entertainment for us to have a game that we can play no matter where we are. And so I really do think that with the way the tablets are going and with the way that handhelds are advancing to a point that
cloud storage, all that stuff.
Exactly, and they're graphically capable. I think what's going to happen is a generation or two from the Vita and the 3DS, we're going to have some sort of tablet, handheld console hybrid. That we're going to have some sort of right. We're going to have some sort of universal MMO that we're going to take with us everywhere, and there's going to be functionality for it at home. Already, I know you haven't played Star Wars, but Justin, I'm already thinking that BioWare could make a killing on a crafting app for the Old Republic Online MMO, and any of y'all that have played this. The way the crafting works is you have your companions that you can have one companion physically with you at a time, but in most MMOs, like you've played Final Fantasy XI, you have the crafting materials and you physically sit down and you actually do the crafting yourself. But with Old Republic Online, your companions do all of this stuff for you, and you have you have a craft itself, like synth weaving is making force sensitive armor, or force user armor, and then you've got things that actually gather materials for that stuff. They show nodes and stuff in the world, but your main way of gathering materials is you say, okay, I'm a synth weaver and I make force user armor, but I need underworld metals for that, and I need power stones, power crystals to make my stuff. And so you take archaeology, which gets you fabrics and power crystals and color crystals, crystals, and you take underworld trading, which gets you gifts to give to your companions to increase their affection for you, which increases their results, and also advances their story, and also specific fabrics and components for crafting and underworld metals itself. And as you send them off on these missions, they all have little stories about like, hey, you're going to go talk to some huts and you're going to do some trading for them and get this, you pay 150 credits for them to go on this mission. You wait a certain amount of time before you can use them again. This mission takes 14 minutes and 11 seconds. And the more their affection with you increases, one, the chance of their success increases, the less the mission costs, and also the less time it takes for them to get back. And they come back and they say, okay, I got 8 of these crystals for you. And then after you gather all of that stuff, you can then turn it into crafting and they turn it into make something with it. Well, I say all that to say, if I could have something on my iPod or phone or tablet or whatever that I could take with me all the time, that's one of the fun things about the game is I can sit there and watch TV and hold my baby and do whatever and still sit there and play Star Wars just by crafting, because it's 3 or 4 minutes that you would just be sitting there anyway, or doing another mission or something until they come back. Well, I can send all of my companions off to do all this crafting for me and do all this gathering and stuff for me. It would be so amazing to be able to carry that with you and have it on your phone and sit there and you're playing a game within a game in that sense. And I think that's where we're going to move. We're going to find really creative ways, like what BioWare has done with this, to take the game with us until eventually the game is just everywhere we go. And I think they'll find interesting ways to make it into an ARG as far as the way we're interacting with the stuff we buy, interacting with the places that we're going.
I think that's a big thing with like the technology, the way technology is working now. Social gaming and mobile gaming are on the rise, and that's I think where a lot of stuff with the iPads or all these different pads, Kindle, even like their portable book, portable and more easily accessible books, and all that stuff. Even if a game stays at its core a single-player experience, it's not meant to really be played with tons of other people. But look at like Mass Effect 3, for instance. They're adding a multiplayer or a social aspect to it, some way, somehow. And I think that's where a lot of games are going at this point.
So piggyback on this, is it and going back to the we've come full circle with the Eastern and Western, the whole concept of pen and paper RPGs. We're getting a group of people together to play a game. Like, you can't play a game of Dungeons & Dragons by yourself.
Right.
You can't even play it with just one other person. There has to be, a couple of people there to do something of note.
We're social creatures. I mean,
Yeah.
we want to relate to other people.
Is it entirely possible that we can take the JRPG, the classic JRPG styles, the Chrono Trigger, the Secret of Mana, the Final Fantasy, the number crunching games, and have those, like you said, kind of be a meta game within a game, but then have the social interaction type games of the multiplayer aspect, or even with a lot of what they're talking about. I remember they talked about this with the early Wii games of even if you're playing a single player game, a second player can
like Super Mario Sunshine, or not Sunshine,
Galaxy, yeah. Is it possible that we can take these games within a games to where you can have a social experience with even the single player game, but the social experience brings more to it, but then kind of just blending the two styles of the larger game is the Fallout style open-ended world, you can do whatever you want,
right?
But then the more, or that could be the social, and then the JRPG aspect is the tablet version of I'm playing like a little mini game, kind of like the Dreamcast with the VMUs. Is it possible that you can do these and have everything?
I see exactly where you're going. Like that's brilliant, and that's exactly where I think things should go. And an example would be, okay, so we're playing generic MMO, blah, blah, blah. And every MMO has the idea of rested experience now. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Where, if you're staying at a bar or an inn or
going back to
like
WoW,
that,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, then you get that
rested,
double XP.
pink, yeah.
Right. And you can find other ways to extend that too, as far as like, you get an affection bonus for your companions for the next quest you send them on, or, whatever.
I think Olivia did a great job with, so go ahead. It's a different thing all the time.
But the idea would be that, I mean, money is always going to be an important part of this, and marketing is going to be the thing that is going to drive this. But something like, okay, so EA, okay, let's just use Star Wars as an example. EA partners up with McDonald's, and let's say that you do have the ability to carry your crafting or the space combat, with you on your tablet, because that's something they can absolutely do, on your tablet, so you can keep playing the game even though you're not with it. It just increases that morphine drift that you constantly want to have that game with you when you have the ability to. Some people can play on their laptops, but I still think that part's important. But so they partner up with McDonald's and say that as long as you're in a McDonald's restaurant or in proximity to a McDonald's Wi-Fi connection, then you are getting that rested experience point bonus, or maybe.
Well, see, that I don't want to go for I think that's actually something that's very negative in the gamer community, especially the Doritos, Pepsi, Call of Duty, XP Challenge.
Yeah.
That's a terrible thing though, because that just makes gamers look more. And just using the McDonald's example, my kid wants to go to McDonald's and eat a cheeseburger that's ridiculous and unhealthy to sit on his ass and play games more.
Sure.
But I like the idea of where you're going. If you're doing something else, or say
it's that ARG. I think alternate reality games, augmented reality game. I like the idea of alternate reality games, but augmented reality I think is absolutely the future of MMOs. So I think some sort of the two things that we need to have in MMOs are some sort of mobile component and also an augmented reality component. And maybe McDonald's is a bad example, but just teaming up with other businesses an example so that the things you are doing in real life affects you some way. In that game, just being in proximity to this certain, Wi-Fi signal, or even just, Google Maps picking up that you're within this certain geographic location, opens up this extra space mission for you to do, or
that was actually one thing I loved about Dragon Quest IX. And a lot of the DS titles of if I'm in a specific area with someone, I really wanted to see Final Fantasy Before Crisis come out, the cell phone game that was I'm playing kind of an MMO. But if there are other people playing around me, we can partner up and take on the bigger but it does. It's not required, but it unlocks more content for being in proximity for other people playing this game.
It just sucks because that stuff works so well in Japan, but
because
over here
of the close
it doesn't
proximity.
because we're spread apart, and they're using the public transportation that we aren't necessarily. It works in a big city, but that's why I think that. It's a necessary evil for these companies to be partnering up with businesses because we need to find some way to centralize these people that are interested in it. And maybe not McDonald's, but clothing stores or colleges or there needs to be you have to have a way to identify the signal. And McDonald's just seems like something, or a Starbucks or a Panera Bread or something. Those are the places that people go to sit down and take advantage of that Wi-Fi. Yeah, unfortunately, department stores just don't work. Hiding in the coat racks and playing your RPG.
Now, is it possible that you could take that aspect of the barcode scanners, the square barcode, the pixel scanners of I forget what the
QRM codes.
QRM. Is it possible that you could use something like that for the augmented reality?
That would
scan that with your cell phone, and I'm here in real life. Send this code to my game. I've just found a rare item because I'm
happen to be at whatever location.
Yeah.
I think that's perfect. And I mean, there's so many ways to go with it. And even I forgot to mention this too. You're talking about the different styles, of gameplay. There's no reason that I shouldn't be able to, level or grow my character or the things around my character in some way. Suikoden is a great example. Okay, so you're playing Suikoden, and there's 3 different types of game. Like, let's look at Suikoden 2. You have the dueling, the one-on-one rock paper scissors game. You have the turn-based tactical army Fire Emblem type game, and then you have the up to a 6-person party traditional turn-based RPG that the meat of the game was. There's no reason that I shouldn't be able to go out, having played World of Warcraft online. Let's say they add this pet system. That they're doing to World of Warcraft. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to go out and use your iPhone or your iPad or tablet or your Android phone to play a turn-based Pokemon style game on your phone to level up your pet even when you're not playing necessarily on your PC. Or for me to take my Star Wars guy and do like a turn-based chess style game. Or even the card game in the Star Wars universe. I can't remember the name of it. Pazaak. Yeah, Pazaak. There's no reason that they shouldn't integrate that game. And
I got into a lot of trouble as a kid because I had Skies of Arcadia on the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast had the VMU, which was a portable game system.
Exactly.
I was sitting there in class playing this little game to get more crystal shards to make what's-her-name's weapon. Like that, it was required.
Yep.
And I'm just sitting there in class, and I had my VMU taken away from me a couple of times from that. But I would love to see that sort of coexistence between the different styles of gaming, because as it is now, there's still too much of a separation between console and PC gamers. There's still to this day, and I don't know why people since I play both. I don't know why people are like, I'm a PC gamer. Console gamers are just childish. It's like, or PC gamers are just elite. No, we're gamers.
Right.
If I have a choice of playing something like Arkham Asylum, Arkham City on a console or a PC, Am I gonna want to play it on a console? Probably gonna go with a console.
Yeah.
But
Because
if
of
I'm playing,
controls.
but if I'm playing a game like TF2,
Go to
I'm gonna
PC.
be playing that on a PC,
Sure.
and that's just
For a
not
lot
even
of
for the
reasons.
extra.
Yeah.
PC's had a very different, like, sort of I can't get it out. Different lifestyle for a game, especially because of the whole mod community with a lot of games. I mean, they allow
The
that.
mod community
yeah,
is
they
fantastic.
increase
for
its lifespan by sometimes incredible amounts for games like that just otherwise would have been long
Fallout
gone
3
by
is
now.
still getting ridiculous number of mods.
Yeah.
So
Bethesda games are always the big ones. Yeah, Dragon Age,
That's
BioWare, or BioWare games and stuff like that, or even lesser, smaller companies than that. It's just an interesting difference. It's all, but
since we're at, I don't even know how long. I'm pretty sure it's still
45 minutes at least.
yeah. Since we're at this point, what would you say? Let me stop this, and we'll do final thoughts in another